Chris Paul looked old last night. We'll get into that more in about 15 minutes. But what you're seeing is the classic NBA chess match. A big physical team with mostly one shooter, Chris Middleton, you trust, against a young, athletic, finesse team, Phoenix, with a lot of shooters, although only one hit last night. And what's critical here is in the NBA history, the 40 years I've been watching, old teams beat young teams, almost always. Even that Warriors team, which we consider young, Steph was only in year 6, and Clay was young, and Draymond was young. Andre Iguodala won an MVP. Remember that? Old Andre Iguodala. And Kevin Durant's got some years on him. So even when you have a young team, veteran players are so crucial. Why? Because when you get late into games and late into series, it's decision-making time. And the young kids get tight. Remember Phoenix against the Clippers? Remember they led 3-1 in that series, went back home to Phoenix? How tight Phoenix was? Now, they won the series. That moment, that night, it was too much. They just were. And last night, Phoenix was great until about 3 minutes to go. And Phoenix got sloppy and a little tight. This is part of the process. So NBA history tells you the old guys beat the young guys. Last year in the bubble, we remarked that it was the only time in my life I'd ever seen old teams peeling off and young teams flourishing, but that was explainable. The bubble had all these old veteran guys away from their kids and families getting depressed. Many players acknowledged that, and the young teams loved it because they were just going and playing video games. It's like AAU basketball, playing hoop, going back to their room. They didn't have the big families. They didn't have a lot of kids. So last year was a weird playoff year. The kids beat the old guys until LeBron and AD won the finals. Miami's a bunch of kids. And then Miami essentially this year reverts back to what happens to the young teams. They're hot and cold, up and down. So the history tells you Milwaukee should win this series. But I think Phoenix is a better team. I think Phoenix is going home. I think this morning, it depends on what fan base you are. If you're Milwaukee's fan base, this morning you're thinking, we're wearing these guys out, and we figured them out. And this morning, if you're a Phoenix fan base, you're thinking to yourself, hell, we were up by 7, and one guy on the entire roster was hitting shots. And that's what I believe. I think Phoenix was up 2-1. They were up by 7 points last night. One guy, Devin Booker, was playing well, and Chris Paul was awful. It was the worst playoff game he's played. The other thing with Phoenix is they've only got 2 veterans here, Chris Paul and Jay Crowder. Crowder couldn't shoot last night, although I thought he played well. He couldn't shoot, and Chris Paul was terrible. Phoenix going to have a hard time beating Milwaukee and winning this championship. Now, Crowder played well but didn't hit his shots. Chris and Jay Crowder need to be really good in these key spots. You cannot rely on kids. This is not the way the league works. Everybody gets tight. And you start looking at that Bucks roster, and Brook Lopez been in this league over 10 years, Giannis 8, Middleton 8. They're old. They have been through a lot of work. I mean, Giannis and Middleton have been playing together for how many years? 7, 8 years? So, I will tell you this. Suns had 17 turnovers. Bucks had 5. I do not think that'll happen again. But we have to be fair here. A lot of those turnovers is because the Suns are fatigued from the Bucks leaning on them. And frankly, the Bucks are physical. And you turn the ball over when people pressurize you and push you and make you uncomfortable. So we've got a chess match. The last 4 minutes, the veteran team that trailed all night, they were behind and they're playing catch-up. The veteran team jumped over the young team because that's what veteran teams do at home in big spots. I still like Phoenix, but Chris Paul, the pressure officially on his shoulders. So what to do with Chris Paul? He was awful last night. This is something we have talked about on this show for the last 3 weeks. Everybody is fawning over Chris Paul, who I had as league MVP. Steph Curry, I thought were remarkable, right? Jokic in Denver. But 4 years, no. 3 years, I'm not happy. 2 years, I'd say okay. In that Devin Booker is great and getting better. DeAndre Ayton is really good and getting better. And Mikal Bridges is solid and turning into a good player. That's the future of the franchise. What you want to do in pro sports is pay a player based on what they will do, not on what they've done. Okay, in Hollywood, they give lifetime achievement awards. You can't do that in sports. We have salary caps. You got to pay a player for what he's going to give you, not for what he's done. Plenty of people have paid Chris Paul, including State Farm. He's fine. As the Suns players age, we talked about this. DeAndre Ayton gets paid. Booker becomes a household name and a star, bigger shoe deal. Do they want older 37, 38-year-old Chris Paul barking at them? The media, and most media people have never owned a business, right? So they're always like, just run it back. You got to let those guys defend their title if Phoenix won. Yeah, at a price. At a price. I'll run the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady back because his salary cap hit this year is $10.5 million. If you pay Chris Paul $28 to $32 million, it creates a different set of issues. Your bench won't nearly be as strong because you got to pay DeAndre Ayton, and you're already paying Devin Booker. So I'm not running it back just to run it back. That's not the way businesses go. And there are also instances in sports where they call it lightning in a bottle. The 2011 Dallas Mavericks. There's no reason to run it back. It was a weird roster. It didn't look like it would work. And it suddenly did, and they won. And the Miami Heat and LeBron James and D. Wade and Chris Bosh got tight, and they won. That's it. That's it. How many playoff series have the Mavericks won since then? I believe it's 0. Okay? You don't have to run everything back. I mean, remember when the Jags got to the AFC Championship with Blake Bortles? And like most lousy franchises, they freaked out and went, let's pay Blake Bortles a bunch of money. He had 23 touchdowns and 11 picks that year. He was still a C- quarterback. What are you doing? It was a lightning in a bottle year. There weren't a lot of good teams at the top of the AFC. The defense, because you weren't paying Bortles anything, was totally stacked. And the Jags made a big mistake. We're going to run this thing back. Nobody at that point thought Blake Bortles was a championship-level quarterback. We've had teams like that. You know, Baker Mayfield right now. They have an all-star team around him. I don't know how good he'll be this year. Baker's not Josh Allen. He's not Mahomes. He's not Justin Herbert. I don't think he's Joe Burrow. But you got an all-star team around him because you're not paying him anything. And they weren't paying anybody around Bortles. Bortles didn't make any money. So he had an all-star defense around him. So you start looking at Chris Paul, and let's be honest. There's also the buy low, sell high belief system. He's finally healthy. Everybody in the West isn't and wasn't. Kawhi Leonard got hurt. Anthony Davis got hurt. Jamal Murray got hurt. So there's a lot of things at play here for the Phoenix Suns. I like Chris Paul. I would bring him back. I would love a 1-year deal. I would stomach a 2-year deal. But the idea, if the Suns win, you got to bring it back. That sounds like somebody who's never owned a business. Sometimes stuff works just in a moment. How many dynasties has the NBA had? 6? In the history of the league, like 6. And the dynasties now don't even last very long. We consider, the Heat are called a dynasty. 4 years, they won 2 titles. Aren't they really just a good team? The Warriors kind of felt like a dynasty, more so because they won before Kevin Durant. They won after Kevin Durant. It only lasts a few years. NFL really, outside of the Patriots, those things last about 3 or 4 years. The Seahawks never won a second title. So the Chris Paul component here is we may just be looking at a perfect year for Phoenix. In fact, they will not be favored next year in the West. As this series progresses, it'll be interesting to see how Chris Paul plays because I'm watching that last night and I'm thinking, there is no way if I own the Phoenix Suns, I'm giving him 4 or giving him 3. 2 I deal with. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.